Hello and welcome to my Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a basic donut shape in Blender 2.8. This is my final product. I am not going to show you everything here because it was a particle system for all the um, sprinkles. There were some extrusions along here for the icing and some modeling along here to get some kind of the uneven donut shape that we have here. We also had some lighting setups, some planes, and materials, which, as there's a lot of work, and yes, if you want to get this full tutorial series, go to Blender Guru's Beginner Blender series on YouTube. It's a great series, it's what I used. I'm actually not completely done with it, simply because at the time of making this, it was not completely out. He was still working on it. So this is what I've got, and I'll show you how to make the very basic shape and teach you some of the basic tools in Blender. Okay, right off the bat, when you open up Blender, this is what you'll see, and this is just the splash screen. Some general stuff like this, file types, and recent files and whatnot. Just click off of it and it'll go away. If you want it back for some reason, you can just go up here to the Blender symbol and splash screen, and it's back. You can click off of that. Now in here what you'll see, this is your origin point. I didn't use much of this, but in higher level Blender stuff, it's rather important. This is the default cube. People kill it very often because no one likes cubes. Just joking. Camera, light, fun stuff like that. But to kill the default cube, select it with first finger click, press X, to the default key for deleting an object, and then you just press first finger click to delete it. Now, however, we don't have any objects in our scene. So the way we can fix that is by pressing Shift A, and it brings up this little thing here. And we can see armature, which is used for animating lights, cameras, speakers, force fields for physics simulation, and what we're going to use is mesh, and the meshes are what make up an object. And so just pick the one that's closest to whatever you want to make. In our case, torus. And now you'll see this little thing that pops up. Usually it shows you like that at the bottom, but I had it open in my previous project. This just shows you some settings about your object, and you notice when you click off of your object for the first time, it will disappear. So it's something you have to do right as soon as you make said object. And so we'll delete this and make a new one just to show you what we want to change. You'll notice vertices are what make up the object, like I said earlier. And the thing we want to change is the minor radius. Make that bigger, you notice it becomes less wimpy and more like an actual donut. So we can click off of that. This is what's called wireframe mode, and instead you can see all the points in your object. And by getting to this thing here, you press Z, get a wireframe, solid, or rendered. And I see I clicked it, and there we go. Now it's using the rendering engine like you would see it when you rendered out the image. But in this case, that just takes up a lot of processing power, and so we're going to stick with solid. Alright, so we've got our object. It's a little bit thicker like we want it. One thing we notice though is that it's kind of sinking through the floor here. And so one way we can fix that is you can go to 1 to look at it side on. So, well, there's 1, 3, and 7. 1, 3, 7. And those are just shortcuts to see it exactly from this plane, or well, each of these planes respectively. Another shortcut in that respect is 0. Press 0, you see it through the camera's perspective. But for now, we're just going to go to 1. We're going to select it, first finger click, and press G to move it around. What you'll notice now is that it's going anywhere we want, but we could press X, and now it's stuck to the X axis. We don't want that. We want it stuck to the Z axis, like this. So I move it up, get it just above the floor, and then we're good. Right there, like that. Now it's like sitting on the floor, not falling through it. Next thing we need to do is we need to add, well, Yeah, add icing. And so to do that, we're going to want to go back to 1, but instead of object mode, we want edit mode. And you'll notice in edit mode, you can control each individual point as opposed to the entire object. And so we want to select the top half of the object. What you'll notice right now is that it only selected the vertices that we could see at that moment in time. So this is where we want to go back into wireframe mode and select all of these vertices. And now you see, because we can see through the object, we selected the entire top half. So now we come back to solid mode, and now I want to duplicate these vertices. And so by doing that, we go Shift D, and now it's duplicated. But if I clicked right now, it would stay in that spot. So what we want to do is we want to press Escape, and now it goes back to the vertices. And this is a point where you want to be very careful. You don't want to click away, because what all of these vertices, there's 2 vertices in that spot, 2 vertices in that spot, and 2 vertices in that spot. And the reason for this, well, is because we duplicated all those vertices and they're in exactly the same spot. So one way we can help fix this is by pressing, well, they're also the same mesh right now. They're different vertices, but they're in the same mesh. And we want to make them into 2 different meshes. We press P, and that brings up this thing. So we can separate it by material, by loose parts, or by selection. And because we already have it selected, we're just going to go by selection, and it's really easy, like that. I want to go back into object mode, and notice we have 2 meshes right now. And if we were to render this, we would see lots of flickering, because all of these, it's in the same exact spot. The icing and the donut are in the same exact spot, and each plane is the exact spot also. And so we would see lots of flickering in the render, because the computer doesn't know which plane it needs to render. And so you notice it's kind of hard to pick, because they're in the exact same spot too. And I'm clicking multiple times, and it's really weird. So one of the best ways to do this is we can go over here to the modifiers panel, and we can add a modifier. And we want to add the solidify modifier. And now what you'll notice, let me delete that again so you can see it. Z wireframe. And so if we go in here, add that modifier again, solidify, you notice it adds in basically another duplicate, but on the inside of this mesh. And that's a problem, because we want to see this, because we want like some actual thickness to our icing. And so if we go here and turn the offset from negative to positive, you'll notice that it comes out a little bit here at the sides, like thickness. We can change this thickness over here in thickness. You'll notice we can make a mushroom if we want, kind of like Mario Kart mushroom here. We don't want that. We want it just a little bit thickness like this. And now the problem is, there's this little edge right here that doesn't look very nice. And so what we can do, let me go into wireframe again to show you this, is we can add something called a subdivision surface modifier. And what that does is it subdivides the surface and makes the entire thing a little bit smoother. And a lot higher res now as well. The only problem with that is because it's higher res, it'll take longer for you to render it, which is a problem. Another little thing, we can see in between the icing and the donut, which it does not look very nice. And so what we can do there is we can go to a crease, and we can add a crease in the inner crease section. And notice now it looks nice and smooth. And while we're at it, I'm going to add another subsurf modifier to the bottom. And now you notice it still looks smooth, but you can still see the faces. And the problem with that is, well, I mean, we could ramp up the subdivision surface modifier and it'll look really smooth. But again, that's adding more vertices, and more vertices means it's harder for it to render. That's what we really want to do instead is right click and click Shade Smooth. And what this is doing is, instead of the as the light as it's rendering, instead of rendering the planes individually, it ignores the fact that there are lines there and shades it smooth, kind of like the name, Shade Smooth. And so that's basically it. That's a donut. We could go up to modeling and model it and make it not perfect so that it looks nice. but that's a whole different video. So I'm gonna leave it here. That's how to make a donut in Blender 2.8.